Hi, I want to quickly show you how I made this procedural wood material in Blender. Here's a sneak peek of the finished result. Okay, never mind, this makes it seem way more complicated than it is. Let's break this down. We're gonna do this in 5 sections. First, we'll create grayscale maps of wood veins and wood boards. Then we'll mix them up and use these mixes to generate a color map and a bump map. And finally, we'll create a general roughness map and we're done. See, it even seems cute this way. If you're a beginner in Blender, this might be a bit hard to follow, but I hope I made this well enough so anyone can get the gist of what I'm doing and the thought process behind it. So buckle up and here we go. Start with a wave texture, map it to the UV, and then change the settings so we get wavy lines. In the mapping node, change the scale so we get stretched wavy lines. These will be our wood veins. Now, add a color ramp with a tight gradient to sharpen the lines, and duplicate that color ramp to create a lighter, less sharp variation. We'll use this later for color highlights. Stay tuned. Finally, we'll add a slightly scaled down noise texture with a color ramp to increase contrast. Get ready to see a lot of color ramps in this video. We'll use this noise texture to lighten some areas of our wood veins and create more variation. To do this, use a color mix node set to screen, and don't forget to put our noise texture in the B input. To end this section, duplicate the mapping node so we can change the overall scale without messing with the stretchiness of our lines. Guess what? We start with the wave texture and map it to the UV. Scale it down a bit and add a color ramp to sharpen the lines. Because perfect things are boring, we'll use a noise texture to distort the lines in some areas. When using a grayscale map as a value like this, the black to white gradient will correspond to a value of 0 all the way up to 1. Since I only want small imperfections, I'll change the white on the color ramp to a gray, lowering the maximum amount of distortion. I'll also adjust other values in the wave texture to further diminish this distortion. Now, I want to make a mask for every other board. To do this, duplicate the wave texture, set the scale to half, and we'll need to offset it by 1.55, so this matches up with the board lines. Finally, use a color ramp set to constant and change the white slider to a position value of 0.5. Doing this extends the lines to be the same length as the space in between. And this will be our mask. To end this section, we'll create a node that controls the scale of both textures at the same time. We just need a value node connected directly to the second texture, but double it before connecting it to the first texture. Just filter it through a math node set to multiply by 2. This way the textures will retain their relative scale when you change the base value. Let's mix this together. First, we mix the wood boards with the veins, using a color mix node set to multiply. This will be our base mix. But as you can see, the wood veins are flowing continuously through the boards, and we want to make it so each board has its own set of veins. This is why we made that board mask earlier. We can now use that mask to shift the location of the veins on every other board, breaking their continuity at the edge of every board. To do this, you can just connect the mask directly to the location input on the mapping node of the veins. But I'm using a math node set to multiply to have better control of the amount of shift I want. With that out of the way, we can connect our base mix to a bump node and that to the normal input of our material. Now we'll make a mix for color highlights. Duplicate the color ramp node connected to our boards, change it to have a wider gradient. Now mix it to the softer veins we left on the side. Use a color mix node set to multiply. Our final mix will serve to darken the color. Create yet another color ramp just like you did last time, with an even wider gradient. Then mix in the noise texture from our veins, using a color mix node, again set to multiply. Play with the factor as you see fit. Now we have 3 mixes: the base mix, the dark mix, and the highlight mix. First, let's connect the base mix to a color ramp node with the colors we want as our base. I have a color ramp node on my clipboard, so we don't waste time getting it just right. Now that we have our base color, we can use the other mixes connected to the factor of hue, saturation, value nodes to give this wood some color variation. The color shift will occur on the white areas, so we need to invert the mixes before connecting them to the factor. We'll start with the dark mix, so change the hue to 0.48 and the value to 0.75. Now the highlights. Duplicate the hue node and connect our last mix to it. Don't forget to invert it. Set the hue to 0.52, the saturation to 0.9 and the value to 1.8. Finally, we'll use a color mix node set to multiply with our base mix connected to the second input to get some of the darkness back to the center of the lines. And it's done. We have color. Finally, we'll create a general roughness map to break the reflections and get an overall better final result. We'll use 2 noise textures, one set to be larger and stretched, so we create large smudges, and another set to be way smaller and more detailed. Remember to set them to UV mapping, just as every other texture until now. I forgot because I'm stupid. Use color ramp nodes to brighten the darker values of our textures. We don't want our wood to be shiny, so we need to stick to an overall brighter texture. Use a color mix node set to screen to mix these noise textures together and connect it to the roughness input on our material. And it's a general roughness map, so you can use this in every other material you want. You can always incorporate the wood boards and the wood veins in our roughness map, but I didn't want to make this material any more complex than it is. As you can see, this roughness map makes a huge difference in the final result. Okay, just one last thing, I promise. Right now, if we wanted to scale our wood material, we'll have to scale it individually, the wood veins and the wood boards separately. And that's just unacceptable. So let's create a value node connected to both scales so we can control them together. And there we have it. This is the full material. I did make some minor adjustments to some values, because I'm never happy with the things I make. So you can just pause the video if you want to see details or copy values. Also, because I'm feeling generous, here's a variation of the material that excludes the boards. Might come in handy. I know there's some redundancies in the material and some places where you could cut corners, but sometimes to make it more understandable, we need to make it a little bit less optimized. I'm sorry I took so long to upload again, but making videos is still pretty new to me, so the process is still unrefined. Either way, I hope you liked this quick tutorial of sorts. See you soon, and stay safe.